everyone, it's Liz with Austin Edible Gardens. I'm in my backyard garden again, and it is early June, and I just want to take the time to give you a tour of my garden in early summer, show you what's thriving, what I'm harvesting, and then I want to talk to you about a lot of the failures that I have had the past few months in the garden, and how I kind of use that as a daily practice. And then lastly, I have a few little empty spots in the garden beds that I want to fill with some heat-loving plants. So I'll show you what I'm going to plant in June also. Let's see what's growing. So in this small bed, I have some beans that I planted recently. They're not ready to harvest yet. Some squash. This is a really awesome flowering plant called a lab or purple hyacinth plant. And you can see it's getting nibbled on by some bugs. This yellow crookneck squash has some bug bites in it. So these are all kind of newly planted, probably about 2 or 3 weeks ago, but they are looking relatively good. So we're going to keep those growing and feeding them with some compost tea. And then this is another yellow squash that's a bit newer planted. But back here, this beautiful vining plant that I have supported with some cattle panel is a straight 8 cucumber. And this was one of the earlier plantings in March, and it has just exploded and has really just exploded with fruit also. So I'll show you back here what we can harvest today. You can see all these yellow flowers. There's a little tiny cucumber fruit with a off of the flower. There's another bigger one here and a bigger one that's not quite ready back here. But down here we have a couple that are ready, and Joe is gonna pick them for me. So remember, they're kind of pokey. So just grab and you can twist it off or kind of snap it off, and I'll help you. So this is a straight 8 variety, and they do really well here in Central Texas. They are called straight 8s because they are straight, and you pick them when they're 8 inches long. Awesome. You want to grab that one too? So this is going to keep putting off fruit for the next month, 2 months. All right, so we have a couple cucumbers that we harvested, and I'll show you this other small bed up front here. This has also mostly been planted in March and April. Some beautiful nasturtium that is a edible flowering plant. This another amazing big leafy green tropical type plant is Okra, and there's some flowers starting down here. These flowers will bloom soon, and then the fruit will come off of the flowers. The okra is related to hibiscus, so it puts off a really pretty hibiscus looking flower. I love okra. It loves the heat in Texas in the summer, so this is a great plant. Some of the snapdragons and more nasturtium that are still growing from actually late winter, and cosmos. So this is just a nice pretty addition to the edibles. I love to have flowers too. I'm going to continue letting this nasturtium grow. We eat the flowers and the petals, or I'm sorry, the flowers and the leaves sometimes, but I want to save some of the seeds on this plant, so I'm going to let it continue to grow until it produces some seed that I can plant next year. In the middle here, this is quite jungly. I really like to plant things nice and tight so that I can get a lot of harvest out of these small beds. This is a bush bean, and this, there's a couple plants here. It doesn't put off a lot of fruit for us to harvest. But, you know, maybe once a week with these 2 or 3 plants, I can make a stir fry for the family. And this will continue producing all summer. So, you know, it's enough for our family. You want to eat a bean, Joe?
Sure.
They're great raw. Again, stir fry them. This big vining plant here is actually the sweet potatoes that I was having fun starting from the slips from an organic sweet potato that I bought from the store. So this has been an ongoing project since early March, and it's now growing and thriving. I kind of use this cage to keep the vines growing vertically instead of sprawling on the ground. It will continue to grow. Again, that real like tropical big leaves looks great in a summer garden. These leaves are also edible, so to keep it kind of contained, we can also harvest some of the leaves. And if I had my pruners here, you know, I can even cut off this entire vine and make some space for other things to grow, and we can eat the leaves in a stir fry. So let's go to the large garden in the back and see the tomatoes and the ground cherries back here. So we're back at the large bed in the back, and I have a sun gold tomato over here and a Cherokee purple heirloom tomato on this side. And in the middle is a bunch of ground cherry plants, and I really like these. They're really unique. I'm going to go dig in there and see if I can find some that are ready to harvest. Joe's harvesting some sun golds, and we just eat these right off the vine. This is a really nice pollinator-friendly plant here. This is African blue basil, and I have that kind of intermixed in the gardens to attract pollinators. In between the 2 tomato plants, I have planted some ground cherry, and those are also in the nightshade family. They have a husk like a tomatillo, and they are really unique. They were grown in North America in the 1800s. They have a flavor that is similar to a raw tomato, but a little bit on the sweeter, fruitier side. It almost tastes like pineapple to me. And the way that you know that they're ready is the little fruit falls right off the plant, and you collect them off the ground. So I'm going to see if I can find any in here. There's so many growing on the plant, and they are, you know, maybe a couple days away, a couple weeks away from being ready. I will pick some. Oh, see, one just fell off as I kind of brushed against it. So I'm going to grab some of those and we'll taste them. I recommend trying to plant ground cherries if you haven't had them already. They are, I don't know, it could be like a new thing to try. So we just pop the fruit out of the husk and I eat them raw. They don't make it very far from the garden. A really good little garden snack. So I love the ground cherry. Happy to see those doing well. And then over here we have the big, monstrous Cherokee purple, my all-time favorite tomato. And there's a couple that are ripe that we can pick now. So I noticed this one down here earlier. Look at that beautiful color. I prune up a lot of the bottom of the tomato plants, mostly to keep some good airflow. But now I can see this one so easily. Try not to drop it. And this will come inside, and we'll eat this with some mozzarella and basil. So I want to talk to you about failures and showing up in your garden every day as a practice. If you looked at this garden right here, you would think that it's a bountiful, thriving garden that, you know, I grew without any trouble. But just a couple months ago, this was planted with some squash varieties. I planted a lot of seeds, and it was coronavirus and homeschooling kids, and we didn't take the time to make sure our chickens weren't coming into the garden, and this garden actually every day got destroyed by the chickens or squash vine borers, or me planting something at the wrong time, and the cool spring temperatures just weren't working with what I was planting. But I want to tell you that just showing up in your garden and paying attention to things that you see growing, things that you see failing, can just be enjoyable as well. I didn't, take it personally, no judgment on myself or even my chickens. So I just kept going. So every day something new was happening in the garden, and I've gotten it to a point where I still have struggles. This squash here has been, I've noticed some squash vine borer eggs on it, so I don't know if that's going to make it much longer. This awesome marigold actually self-seeded, so this showed up to give me joy, and I didn't even put it here, and that just makes me so happy. All of these like surprises, whether they're happy or sad in the garden, are awesome. So I just want to tell you to keep going. Don't stop gardening. Don't judge yourself too harshly. It's all a learning experiment, and eventually, this is how we learn how to garden. So there's a empty spot here, and I just want to finish this tour with a quick planting demo. This spot is calling for some color, and it is a great time to plant zinnias, one of my favorite Texas flowers. This is a really heat-loving, colorful variety. This is a scabiosa zinnia, so it's going to be a little smaller pom-pom. It's called a cupcake flower form of a zinnia. And so I'm going to plant some seeds here, and hopefully this fills in the next couple months with some happy flowers. And the way that I plant zinnias specifically is they're just a 1/4 inch deep in the soil. I'm going to just kind of, not even dig holes. I'm actually just going to sprinkle some seeds. The thing I like about zinnias and flowers like marigolds is they can just kind of surprise you, and I let them kind of dictate where they want to live and how they want to grow. They might be kind of wild, they might be kind of wonky, whatever it is. That's what I love about adding flowers to an edible garden. So we'll just kind of mix those into the soil there real lightly, and we'll see what kind of surprises we can find from planting seeds like that. I hope you enjoyed the tour of the garden in June. Remember that growing edible gardens is really cultivating a relationship with nature. So everything that we do out here is to experiment and learn and maybe get a harvest, but really just to learn how to pay attention in the garden and show up and enjoy the failures and the successes.